Hello, 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 and welcome back to another Juicy Relationship Live on Facebook and YouTube. I'm so excited. We got one more guest today. So, you have been following my lives for this month of November, then you already know Mr. J, Dr. Phil, as we like to call him sometimes. Brenda, and now you're going to be meeting Cinzia. So I'm so excited. Hey, welcome, everyone.
There you
So, if you've been watching, my YouTube, my Facebook, and YouTube, really is all about talking about relationships, tantra, sexuality, to get rid of this taboo, to make it, to normalize this topic, to just be talking about sex and relationships, just like we're talking about what we're eating tomorrow. Okay. It should just be that normal in my view. So as people are coming on, say hello. I see people are coming on. Say hello. And I just want to know if you've been watching as you come on. Let me know if you've been watching us all this month and what you think about how it's been going. So, welcome, welcome, welcome. Hi, Brenda. So, everybody, Brenda's back on. We're still here. We want to get some updates on if she found a zaddy yet. That's because I know people, but we're going to wait to let some more people come on before Brenda talks about whether she got a zaddy. So if you're on and you've been watching it last week and you want to know whether Brenda got a zaddy or how close she's coming to a zaddy, let us know that you're following and you want to hear, okay? That way we can talk to you.
Yes.
Operation.
Does Brenda does Brenda does Brenda have a new hairdo? Because I noticed she looks a little different today. Like I'm guessing she had some success.
No,
Or she did
I
something.
just threw my
Wait, wait,
hair
wait! Don't
up.
say yet. Don't say
Don't
yet.
say
Just talk about the hair. But we gonna let people wait for people to come on and
Yeah.
know about your success.
We can play
Yes,
some
Oh,
bets. We can play some bets.
I like that. Let's play some bets. So
no.
someone said they missed the last few weeks. Oh, you've been missing. Ray said you're glowing. Uh
Oh,
I
oh.
thought the same. Yeah, like she looks different today.
Okay, wait. Did you get some?
somewhat.
That's what usually makes a woman glow.
No, I have a new moisturizer.
Okay. Okay. So we're taking bets. So Ray says she believed that she found a zaddy. What does other people think as you're coming on? Do you
Oh,
think she
wow.
found a zaddy? Do you think she didn't find a zaddy? Oh, somebody else said yes. I gotta go into this Facebook because it's not showing the name. So I need to go into my Facebook to see who is commenting that I can't see the names.
Brenda
Um,
says you're glowing. I cannot believe this has turned
okay,
into the subject matter.
right?
It was the first thing
Okay,
I noticed,
you
Brenda. Like as
All
soon
my
as I
friends,
logged
that's all they
on,
ask me about. Miss Brenda,
my
Miss Brenda.
no,
yes.
like my eyes
Okay,
went directly to Brenda. I was like, she looks different
right?
today.
So
Like,
so Bianca, it's Bianca who says yes. So she thinks that you got a zaddy. Okay. All right. So we're taking bets here.
or
So
she's prepping.
let's welcome Cinzia Bella. Welcome.
I'm gonna say I'm nervous because I have been watching on the other end and throwing in my comments. So I know I have some big shoes to jump in and fill here because you guys have been so entertaining. Um, hopefully
Well,
I can.
you've been part of that though. You've been part of the entertainment because you keep us hopping
With
in
the
these
question,
discussions.
Yes.
I'm a question person. Lots of questions. That's how I found
Yes. So yes, so you can ask the questions while you're on here and you can comment. So so today's topic, everyone that's coming on, we're gonna be talking about navigating relationships to include marriage and singledom or singlehood. Right? So we have three people on here who is or have been married: Cinzia, Brenda, and Jay. Phil and I have never been married. Is that correct, Phil?
But we've been in long-term
But
relationships. That
but
wasn't a
but we've been in
7-year
longer
one.
term relationships, yes.
Yeah.
And Phil and I are married to each other. At least people keep saying that.
Yeah.
So, and Phil and I,
No,
we in our way consummated our marriage this
Yes.
weekend when I went to Sao Paulo and met him.
Oh, you
Yes.
did?
And our consummation included a nice thick chocolate
Woo.
cigar and what
Mhm.
else? And fish
And fish, some seafood.
and seafood. So
Yes.
there you have it. All right.
Mm-mm-mm.
So
With a
I
meatball.
wanted us so I wanted us to really talk about
In the park.
in the park.
Ooh.
So I wanted us to
So
talk about marriages, what and long-term relationships, right? Between Brazil, the US, and all of us, between all of us, we've been in several different countries, right? Um, Italy, uh,
Yes.
many other countries that you, Brenda and Cinzia have traveled to. So, so it'd be nice to talk about dating in these different countries and then what you've learned from being married, right? So the difficult moments, the challenges from your marriages, um, and anything that you feel comfortable enough sharing. And in the end, the take home, I want the take home to be lessons learned that people can take to what they could do differently to help, or if they're in a marriage and maybe they're having difficulty, or just some lessons that they can maybe do differently or take away. So when they get into a long-term relationship or marriage, I said a lot. So not to put anyone on the spot, but
Um, well, I want to go to something that Jay said last week. He says he
mhm.
always lets people, initially when he got divorced, that he was separated, and he would let the women decide whether or not that's something that they wanted to pursue. For me, if I meet somebody online and they say they're separated, that's an automatic no, because the first woman that a man gets with after his wife, that's the jump off chick. So that's not going to last. That's
Or the
science.
rebound.
Yeah. And then the other thing is you do not heal emotionally from your relationship. It takes about 5 years for you to do that. So when I'm also,
5 years.
it takes 5 years to heal. It really does. I mean, you can date during that time, but I wouldn't necessarily say I'm jumping into a relationship because you're still in that open window of, you say the rebound chick. That's about how long it'll last. Is
Mhm.
that so? If they've been divorced 5 plus years, then we can talk. But that divorce and then or that separation and then the divorce, it has to be a minimum of 5 years before I'll
So
even
what do the
entertain.
rest of you think about that? About that 5 years?
I think there's some merit to what she's saying. Obviously, like I always say, there are exceptions to that rule, right? And when I was
Somebody.
dating while I was
Mhm.
separated, but I didn't necessarily want to be in a committed, monogamous relationship with someone for the reasons that she's citing. I needed to kind of rediscover myself, kind of understand who I was as a person that was now single again. And I did have a lot of healing that I needed to do. Now, for me, I was in an actual like committed relationship um, in 20, I would say maybe 4 years after separation. And that relationship lasted for about a year and a half. Um, I didn't call her my rebound because I had dated plenty by that time. But what I will say is that I did need a reminder that I was still able to love.
Mhm.
And I had a really great relationship with someone, but we ultimately ended up not being each other's like person. You know what I mean?
And why do
Um,
you think that is?
we just had differences. There was nothing bad. I mean, we legitimately we just ended up wanting some different things. we just had some incompatibilities. We had a lot of compatibility, but there were some things that we just weren't compatible in. Like our visions for our future were different, and I think that's okay. I think you will find that whether you have been married and divorced or this is your first relationship, you may find that there are a lot of things that do work with you and someone,
Yeah,
but
I'm
ultimately you're not built for forever.
Can I say something? Because I agree with Brenda. I just think 5 years is a little bit too long. I'd
I'm
go
not saying
two.
not to date in that time period. I'm not saying not to jump into something that's going to be long lasting because that's not going to happen. Of course, get out and date and enjoy yourself, but expecting to be in a relationship that's going to be long lasting, that is not going to happen.
Yeah, but that's where I kind of disagree because you never know what could happen. I think you definitely need that time. Definitely 1 year you need for yourself. And I don't even think, even for dating, it's like you just need to be by yourself. If you've had a really
Mhm.
long relationship and you broke it off, it's over. You need a year to restore your mind. Second year, I think it's a good time to start dating, but then I wouldn't limit myself and say, oh, I don't want to get into anything deep because you never know. Perhaps meeting that person is part of the healing process. So I would never, I think 5 is a bit long and I wouldn't limit myself to that. It may be that for you it works, but I don't know if a lot of people in the comments are thinking 5 is a bit
Yeah,
much.
it's not
Yeah,
popular.
I
I
feel like
get it.
in my opinion, I do feel like 5 is a bit much. I do agree that you need some time. Like there's the whole rebound chick, the rebound guy, that comes for a reason, right? So generally, and I've noticed even for me in my past relationships, I've been a serial monogamous. So I have literally in the past, I've been from one relationship. Soon as it ends, I'm already in another one. Maybe even before that one ends, because I'm kind of like feeling is about to end. I already find somebody else, and then that one ends, and I'm in the next one. And and I knew that wasn't good. That's just me jumping from next to the next to the next to the next, and not really. But I also knew that for me at that time, I had difficulty being by myself. I had difficulty being with me and like even if I wasn't in a relationship, if I was driving to work, I had to be talking on the phone. I couldn't be in silence. So I had to go through my healing process and realize that no, I need to be alone. And
Exactly.
for me personally, I consciously decided for 2 years I wouldn't be in a relationship. I wouldn't even have sex with anyone. I took a vow of celibacy for 2 years to really just work on myself, and
And
I
see,
gave
that's the
myself.
key. That's the key.
Mhm,
You need to know who you are. You lose yourself in a marriage. You
mhm,
because your roles change. When you're married, you're somebody's wife. They're
mhm,
dependent upon you, or you're somebody's mother. But when you become single, like who are you?
mm.
So
So this.
sorry. So that's
Go
where
ahead,
I'm going to
Susan.
jump in because so I've been married 26 years, so I can't speak to a length of a separation because 2 years ago we did separate and it was about 6 months, and so literally, from the ages of 18 to 20, I went from my mother's house to the military to marriage to a mom.
Mhm,
18 to 20. I didn't even know me, and yet I stepped into these big roles. And so, talk about challenging. You don't know yourself, and how can you
right,
give to someone else? And now all these other people are dependent on you. And so
right.
what I realized is over the years, you know, like Brenda said, you become the mother, you become someone's wife, know yourself. And so when I had my period of separation, it was so funny because separate households. We both saw other people. But one of the very first things I noticed is when people would ask me, what do you like to do? What are your interests? What are your hobbies? And I always had a we answer. I didn't have a me answer. And so
Mhm,
instantly, like, oh my God, all this time has passed in my life. What do I like? What are my interests? And so that's pretty much like in the last 2 years, even though after we reconciled, I still stay committed to developing me and not losing me. So,
And we were
and
talking about this similarly, I think last week. When I was married, there was this one point. I had to tell my wife, I was like, yo, you need to go get a life, because, when we got married and, and had children, she stopped doing the things that she used to love to do. She used to spend time in her sorority, just doing stuff with them. And then it was just coming home or just being home and not doing anything. And I was like, yo, like, don't worry. The kid is going to be all right. I'm his dad. I'm not going to let the kid die. Go do something. Go do you so that you can feel like yourself again. I think sometimes we accept the role as something that has to completely change us, and we think that we have to stop being who we are. And and depending on what you view a marriage as, that may be part of the bargain for you, right? You may say, "Hey, you know what, if I'm going to be married, then that means I got to come home, I got to cook, and I got to just do all of that stuff. I can't have any friends, I can't go out, I gotta." But a lot of times, and some people are saying this in the chat, that they kind of lost themselves during marriage and relationships.
Well, yeah, you can't even lose yourself if you never knew yourself. And so that was
Right.
my thing.
Exactly.
Like I went from going to college parties, high school parties, football games, and boom, marriage and motherhood. And so who what?
Right.
No idea
Right.
how to be a youth. So my kids are grown now. So of course, when I hit my 40s, it's like I'm out Friday through Sunday. I mean, COVID kind of put a cramp in that, but we would date even in our marriage. Date weekend all weekend long. So that was nice. But again, when that separation came, it's like, oh.
And that was so the Bianca who says I married my high school sweetheart and was lost when we divorced. She said I lost myself in my marriage and dating relationships. And so you made a very good point, Cinzia. How do you lose yourself if you never found yourself? You don't know who you are. And so many times we live in a society which has changed, but we've lived for so long in a society where it's like, okay, you went to school and you're being groomed to, okay, now you got to get married. So a lot of people right from high school are getting married or right immediately after college, and so it's like, okay, you have to get married, have kids, start your family. But you're still so young. And I
Right.
mean, at 46 right now, I'm so different than when I was 30 and then when I was 20. So it was like I could see how at 25 I really didn't know who I was. And so now I've stepped into my power. I've stepped into who I am, in my 40s. And so it's like it's important to have that time to get to know yourself. Yes, Phil.
I'm curious. I need to ask Chinzia a question because we got her here, so I'm gonna be drilling some questions to her. But I'm so curious.
Yes.
But one thing, to your point, I've read a lot of articles that saying it's people are getting married later and later and later, and I think it has a little bit to do with people realizing that they got to figure themselves out before they get married. But question for Chinzia, because you're in a special situation because you're still married. How is it? And I think you'll help a lot of people out if you can say, how is it that you're able to find yourself within that marriage? How were you able to make that division and still, I'm curious to know.
Brenda's
Yes.
laughing. So for people, Brenda and I have been friends for like 19 years. So we talk on the phone like every day. So she's been through my journey with me. I've been through her journey with her. It's really funny. It's just, it's the universe and how things click together. But it was like when I separated at that time, I had someone that I knew that was becoming a sex therapist. And so I started listening to like the podcasts and lives that she did. And then that led me to
I guess that wasn't me because I don't have a podcast.
no, that was the pleasure pusher case of life. And she was on your show. So
Yes.
It was just like how things have started to go. And it was like, wow, so never like doing adult dating and all these different things. And it was just it was exciting. And then knowing that, going back into the marriage, I still had to go back to the commitment and everything. But it's just like, and with COVID, right? So I saw an article where it said like divorce rates are just through the roof, right? Because we are together, but you're always busy and distracted by other things. But when COVID hit, like everybody was on lockdown, so you really had to face the person you're in the relationship with. But
Yeah.
during COVID time, I still said, I have my nights where I do my thing. So like our adult conversations, the Tuesday night, doing that, just having my own self-interest and not just, we have our we activities now, but now if you ask me what do I like to do, I have my things that's not a we answer. So I think it's just that, and then just constantly as women, understanding our role and our power. Like, I think this little stream thing we put the women on top, right? You have your power, and it's like owning your power. And so, and even going back and learning, how do you effectively communicate? And now I teach my kids, and again, they're 25 and 22, and I look back at myself, and I'm like, man, I was already raising two kids by their ages, and so I hope that answered the question. But I think it's just constantly finding your own interest and again, look, I'm on this little live tonight. Like, you told me that 3 years ago. I'm like, you're crazy.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
cool.
And that's where that 5 years comes in, because it takes time.
Yeah.
You have to discover who you are. And so that's the whole part of the relationship, because you don't want to bring in the old you or infant you into a relationship. You want the mature you, the one that is polished now, the one that has the voice that can say, no, I don't like that. I don't want to go there. You know what I mean? You have to develop that, and that takes time.
So
Brenda's
Universal
gonna
Faith
win us
says,
over. Remember,
Universal,
I'm just
Universal
saying, Brenda,
Faith,
she's gonna win us over with those 5 years
she
by the
is,
end of
right?
the night.
What Brenda's saying, Universal Faith says, I have been separated 3 years, divorced since February 2020, talking to someone for 6 months. Sometimes my ex shows up, and she's been separated 3 years. Sometimes my ex shows up on my dreams. It's been interesting watching my response to the experience. So she's been separated 3 years, and she still has that ex showing up. Now, in general, it really takes us like 7 years to change. So it's every 7 years we're getting into a new cycle of life, energetically. So maybe there's something to that. But where did you come up with 5 years? I still think that's very long.
It's long, and like I said, I'm not saying not to date. I'm not
Right.
saying that. I'm not saying not don't have your fun, but you have to grow. You have to develop. You have to get there. And then the lady that you just referenced, is she separated from her husband, or are they divorced?
They divorced in February 2020, but they've been
It,
separated for 3 years.
there's still a soul tie there. That's why he's in her dreams. She has to
Mm.
cut that off.
I'm sorry, my friend is the relationship guru, isn't she?
I know, right?
No, listen.
I'm like, she gotta start. She
Let me
gotta
tell
come
you,
start working with me.
I have had probably the most bad experiences anybody could ever go through. I have had them. I am now determined. I hear what you don't say. That's how good I am now.
Well, it's so true that and this is the thing, and I tell this to people all the time, other like colleagues who are therapists, or even just people who are just going through a lot, and I say, you know what you're going through and this healing that you're having to go through, and this difficulty, actually prepares you to be able to help other people, and many of us therapists, psychotherapists, psychiatrists, counselors, coach, we've been through like some of the worst and or toughest life experiences. And so that just puts us in a place to be able to understand what other people are going through, And I think a lot of times that helps more so than any degree that you could possibly have is your life experience.
I lost my train of thought. Never mind. Somebody asked me a question. I lost my train of thought. I'm sorry.
Okay, so I think this is Bianca. Soul of a man says, step into your power. Yes. I felt that restlessness in my first relationship. We started dating when I was 16 and stayed together for 6 years. I felt stifled after a while because I wanted to explore and experience more things, and I did not know myself outside of us. And Christian Lamb says experience teaches. And that's so true. So true. Like it's important, especially as women, like and you know, we have men on here, so I love to hear from you, but especially as women, we're created to, again, like I said earlier, get married, have kids, take care of other people, take care of your kids, take care of your spouse, take care of the home. And it's like if we think about ourselves, we're made to feel guilty that you're being selfish, you know. So we don't really learn who we are, what we want, what we like. And a lot of times men are conditioned just the opposite. Focus on you. What do you want? So a lot of times men come into a relationship and they're like, this is what I want. This is who I am. This is what I'm going to accept, you know, and they're like very straight up. Whereas women are like, mm,
Yes, and they expect us to adapt accordingly. And that's where the problem comes in. We lose ourselves.
I agree. I'll just give a little bit of a male perspective because I agree with everything Renee said. But for the men, we do have a little bit of negative conditioning too that could be bettered. In that, yes, we are taught at a very young age that we can be independent longer, than women, quote unquote. But the side of that which I think it can create problems for a man is in that sometimes there is the pressure that they feel that at some point, yeah, you do have to kind of settle down and raise a family, take care of the family, do this and that. And I'm not saying it's as much as a woman. So sometimes men do have to sit and kind of decide what they want from life, because sometimes a man wants to just you know, live his life and do his own thing, but he's getting this pressure from the parents, from sometimes from women to settle down, and you have to be this, and that, and the third. And so the advice you guys are giving for women it's on a lesser level and kind of on a different perspective also can apply to men, because men also have a little bit of that pressure of, well, you got to be a father, you got to, where's my grandkid, where's my grandkid, where's my grandchild, so, and I know I've heard it a million times, because you're not getting a grandchild, because that's just not the way that's not what is happening. So we do have that pressure too. So any of the men in the audience, I think, maybe can attest to that. I'll ask Mr. J, see if he kind of feels the same way.
Well, I think there are a lot of gender roles that will feel forced upon us, right? And I think I think someone talked about programming earlier in the comments. We have to sometimes learn how to deprogram ourselves from what we understand our gender role is supposed to be. And it takes time. Just like I've talked on other chats, other discussions about men not being able to feeling as if they are not able to express their feelings. We had our chat last night, our adult conversations chat, and there were a couple of times during that conversation that there was someone felt like what I'm saying, who I am and how I represent, almost could not be a real thing. And from my perspective, I'm like, well, yeah, it feels uncommon if you haven't dealt with deprogramming yourself from traditional gender roles and understanding that men and women can both do a thing, whatever that thing is that they want to do, including being able to express yourself and have feelings and being able to cry if you need to, being able to get your ass up and support your family and take care of everyone, like all of those
and
things.
have sex with as many people as you want to.
Right. I mean, yeah. I mean, so I think a lot of it is, what have we been conditioned to believe are the right things for our gender role.
So you know what I find interesting, Renee? You did sorry, I'm all over your lives. You did something with the trap witch a few about a month ago, and she was talking about sex workers. And a lot of times, the men go there to release because they have all these expectations on them, and they need an outlet, and so that's why a lot of them turn to those type of scenarios or situations. I thought that was very, the enlightenment there. But I have a question for the guys. So I think females, and you hear this a lot. So how did you know, or how do you know when a relationship is over? And so I say this because I think women, we mentally check out long before it ends. So when the ending comes, I think we do a lot better than Brenda. So I'm just curious for the guys, like in your relationships, like how has that been?
Well, for me, you want to talk, Phil?
Go ahead.
For me, and I'm going to talk about my marriage. I knew that relationship was over when the hope was gone. And what do I mean by that? If at least one person in that relationship has hope that it is still sustainable, then there's hope present. I remember asking my then wife, I said, "Hey, are you happy?" And she said, "No." I said, "I'm not happy either. So what the hell are we doing?" That to me, that meant that we had an absence of hope in our relationship. And for me, that was a very powerful moment in our marriage. And that was legit the beginning of the end. I mean, we struggled, but we even separated for like 7 months, and I came back home, and in my mind was trying to make it work because I didn't feel like I did all the things that I should have and could have done to make it work. She also realized that there were some things that she could have done differently, but I think for us at that period, it had been a little bit too late, right? But when we both kind of acknowledged that we were not happy, and to me that signified a lack of hope for the future of our relationship, I knew that it was time for things to end.
So now, when you say that you weren't happy, right? So how I look at relationships are not perfect, and there's always it's always in cycles like a roller coaster. You have your ups and your ups and your downs. Now, I remember hearing one thing a while back, which was why leave one set of problems to go to another set of problems?
5 years.
Okay, Brenda. So we need 5 years to work on yourself, so that way there's not another set of problems.
She's right, because honestly, if you don't fix yourself, you're going to carry that same bad behavior into the next relationship.
Exactly.
I will say that I started going to therapy. So even when we separated, I found value in therapy, and I had no issue in saying that. And I could have this conversation with you all and be just fine. But something about when I sat on that therapist sofa, it's like a cliche, right? You watching a movie, like literally eyeball, tears. I went through a whole box of tissue. It's like all the strength and everything I thought I had to do and had to be and show, I released it all. And so, you have to take your ownership in your behaviors. And so, you just have to do better. And so I also advocate for people, if you're going through that separation, seek out that therapy.
Brenda's convincing me though. I was at 2 years. I've moved up to 3. She's winning me over. She's won me over. Let me answer Cinzia real quick. Well, one thing, what Cinzia said about your live, Renee, that she had seen. Here in Brazil, there's a lot of sex workers, there's a lot of transvestites, and you end up befriending them. If you're kind of an open person, you do. And I lived actually in a nice building, but it was full of high-end prostitutes in there. And so we got to talking to a lot of them, and it's amazing, exactly what you said. They would say that so many men would see them and not have sex. It would be like therapy. You just mentioned therapy. They would just sit there. They just wanted somebody to hold them and hug them because their wives were so cold, et cetera, et cetera. They just needed more of an emotional thing rather than the sex that most people imagine. But to answer your question about, for me, when I feel the relationship is over, I check out mentally before I do physically. And it's when I see that paths are divergent. You know, I'm somebody that's constantly moving forward. I just came back from running. That's why I go. Everything like this. So I'm a forward mover. I'm a forward mover. And if I see that that person's not moving forward with me, I don't have any hate or spite or anything. I just say, look, you're going in a different path than I am. And I see that real fast. And then it's just over. It's like, you know, go on your path. And I'm happy to say I think one relationship I had ended badly. Every other one, I'm still friends with these people. I can still talk to them because I just noticed, right, nipped it in the bud. I say, look, we're going in different paths. I respect you. Go on yours. I'm going to go on mine, and let's kind of happily move on.
Here's another one of Brenda's little thing. You know, we put people into the box we want them to be in.
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
forever to the box. And so I think that was part of the issue for me is that, you know, being married so young, I had all these expectations and I kept trying to make him conform to what I thought he should be or what I thought he should do. And while we're doing all the check marks with our marriage and building, you know, as far as like Renee said, you know, they give you the plan. We work the plan. We work the plan really well. You know, careers, education, raising our kids, retirement funds, all that stuff, but we never worked on us, right? So even
Right.
when we reconciled, we went to a marriage workshop and they did something like asking the big questions. And so there was a couple behind me and we had to turn around and ask the questions. And so one of the questions, and they had been married for a while, one of the questions was, what did you say? Ask questions.
Ask questions.
So one of the questions was, how did your family show love growing up? And so the guy responded with that he grew up in a house full of women and the women did everything and the guys were kind of taken care of. And the wife looked at him. She said, explains a lot. But you know, it was like you've married to someone for so long and do you really know them and do you
Right.
know them? And so, you know, I think again, another form of counseling, couples counseling, you know,
Mhm.
workshops for
You,
this.
I definitely think that that is needed before anyone gets married. So many people get married and don't ask questions. They don't talk about, you know, what they think, how they want to raise their children. You know, sometimes you have people who are married from different religions. And then it's not until they end up having a kid, then they're like, oh, my child should be going to the Catholic Church. No, my child should be going to a mosque. You know, so it's like, they don't talk about these things. They don't talk about there's just so many things that's just left unsaid.
It is, you know, in you know, growing up in the church, they used to always say the husband and the wife need to be equally yoked, and so
Mm-hmm.
I assumed that that meant that they need to be on the same spiritual or religious level, need to know the same amount of Bible verses and all that. That has nothing to do with it. Like you said, they need to know, like, you were raised in similar backgrounds. Um, you all have similar paths that you're going to go on. You're going to want to be able to complement one another. And financially, you want, you know, throw that in there because after a while, you begin to get mean and angry and resentful if one person is doing more or has more than the other one. When I first got married, the way I grew up was we didn't have cookouts. We had family dinners. And so when we went to somebody's house, we were dressed. You know, we had on up black patent leather shoes. And so when I got married, they had the cookouts, they had the picnics. And so they was playing cards. I didn't grow up like that. They would party, they were drinking, and then they would get to fighting. Well, at first it was exciting because I had never seen this before. But once I started having children, I didn't want them exposed to that. Not that there
Right.
was anything bad with it, but that just didn't go along with how I was raised. And um, my dad would have his little nightcap. I never saw alcohol in my house. So to go into my kitchen and now I see liquor bottles on in the kitchen on top of the cabinet, I was like, whoa, what are you doing? Like we can't do that. You know what I mean? So those were some of the things. They were like I said, exciting in the beginning, but as time went on, um, that just didn't play into how I wanted to rear our children and our family. So that became an issue.
Yeah, you know, that's why I keep saying this. every week. We ask the question of how you can do this and how you sustain relationships and how you grow. You gotta ask questions.
Yeah.
You gotta
You
ask the
do.
tough questions. You need to start asking them from day one. And listen, people got different opinions of this. They're like, oh, you shouldn't be asking somebody about what they think about their future. Listen, what do you want? You should, the first question you should be asking yourself, and Brenda, this is going to go back to, your original statement about 5 years, right? And what do you want out of that relationship with that person?
Right.
You gotta, that should be one of the first questions. I'm not gonna say the first question, but it should be one of the first questions you ask, right? Because like Brenda, you said, if you saw that somebody was separated, that's an automatic no for you, right? But why? Because you are probably looking for something that's on a marriage path, right? Like,
Is that what you're looking for, Brenda?
I'm not looking to play games. I'm too old for games. I'm good with
you
that.
understand what I'm
I
saying,
don't
right?
have time to waste.
Right.
So
Brenda doesn't want to share her class.
depending on what you want, you may be okay with somebody. There are people who were okay with dating me when I was separated because they were not looking necessarily to get married in the next year or 2 or 3, right? But they wanted to meet someone that was a nice dude. I'm a nice dude. They wanted to meet someone that was a nice dude that,
And a good looking dude.
right, that could be arm candy every once in a while, right? That they could wrap their arms all the way. Okay, I digress. But you have to know what it is you want,
Yeah.
and then ask the appropriate questions with that, right? And ask the appropriate tough questions when you get to that point.
Yeah. And
And
I
and I want
now.
to add on to that. I want to add on to that. So when you say that, like it's so important, it's so true. But so many people have difficulty asking those tough questions out of fear. Fear that this person is going to go run off in the opposite direction.
Renee,
Let
can I say
them.
something?
Go ahead.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
right, exactly. Let them, because you have to have that. You have to have this discussion to know if this person is for you or not. Go ahead, Phil.
Renee,
Go, go, go. I
Renee,
know you
let's
talk.
make that
Go.
connection because I love to make connections. Last
Yes.
week and the week before, we were talking about dating and those apps and all that stuff. That's your practice mode, guys. That's your practice mode. It goes up a level when it's that serious relationship. But when you're on these apps, I did it yesterday. Like one of the first things I ask is, "What are you looking for? O que você busca?" I say it in Portuguese, but what are you looking for? And so that's your practice field. When it's just silly dating, silly little apps, you start getting comfortable with asking those questions and being okay. Like Mr. J said, if they run off, they run off. They weren't the right person for you. So
Right.
then when it comes to the like now we're gonna get serious, it's like you're comfortable. I've already done it for 5 years on the basic dating level. When it comes to that serious time, I can ask the same questions and go even a little bit deeper. And even one thing that I think is so incredible are couples that are able to do those prenups. I think that would be such a difficult conversation to have, but I have so much respect for couples that are able to be realistic and say, guess what? Sometimes love doesn't last forever, so let's sign some papers, and I respect that. I think that would be a super difficult conversation to have,
Yeah.
when you're about to
And
get married.
I've actually met couples that have actually agreed to every 5 years to come
Renegotiate.
together, yeah,
Yay.
and redo their and say, okay, do we still want to stay married? If we
Renee,
do, what's working, what's not? Phil, you
Renee,
don't let me talk.
I'm sorry, but I feel like I'm so in love with you right now, because you're
Okay.
saying
Go ahead,
real quick,
honey. Go
real
ahead,
quick,
honey. Go
real
ahead,
quick,
honey.
because you just mentioned this, and I have a really dear friend who's Wicca, and part of their marriage ceremony is that I don't know how many years, 5 or 7 years, they have to redo their marriage. And they have to redo and redo and redo. So I'm sorry I had to just say that because you brought that up. That's so cool though. I love it.
Okay, honey, you're so adorable when you get excited. You
I
can
know it's
interrupt
not
me
often.
anytime. No, but I think that that is actually a good thing because then every 5 years, 7 years, however long you want to put in this agreement, and be able to just say, okay, um, I don't know what happened. Okay, there you go. Okay, so yeah, and then just say, okay, let's talk now. What's working? What's not working? Do we want to stay in this? Do we not want to stay in this? You know, and yeah, that takes a lot. And I think that that also helps in the marriage in the sense that okay, your 5 years came up. Now what? When you have that conversation and you decide to renew for another 5 years, then you're making a whole new commitment, and you know, okay, this may not be something permanent, but I have to keep working because sometimes people stop doing the work. You know, I just met this guy this weekend, this week, yesterday, and he was telling me how, you know, in the beginning he does all this stuff, you know, to get somebody, and then he was like afterwards he changes. Like we were specifically talking about opening doors, right? And then he's like, oh, you know, after a certain amount of time he stops opening doors. And I'm like, well, why would you change what you were doing before? This is what got the person to fall in love with you. Now you're changing because you got comfortable. So how will that person still continue to love you?
That's
You
the
know?
representative. That's the representative, and people send their representative.
Yes.
Like you said, once they accomplish their goal, then hey, then you see the real them. So you have to be careful.
Exactly. And then that's why that 5 years, I'd be like, well, wait a minute. Um, you were your representative. Now I'm knowing you. I don't know if I want to renew this. If I'm going to renew this, I need to keep seeing what I fell in love with. Because if that's not true, then we're not renewing this.
And just like I always say, a woman can fake a orgasm, but a man can fake a relationship.
Men, what do you think about that?
No
I ain't
comment.
with Brenda.
Exactly.
I wanted to say though, you know, one of the most valuable lessons I learned, I was taking a business class, and we got up to the part where we start working on the business plan. And in the business plan, the instructor said, you always, always, always create an exit plan to that business. Because you don't know how things are going to go. You might have to sell the business. Business may not be profitable. And when you think about relationships, you know, you kind of need to have that too. That's why, you know, I tell my daughter, listen, save some money on the side so you can have your fuck you fund. So if somebody starts making you mad, you have your money, you know how to manage it, and you know how to go. Right? Yeah. That's in a way that's like having an exit plan built into that relationship plan. Something to consider.
So you know what? Alex had actually asked a question that we missed. He had said when we were talking about knowing when you're done in a relationship, he said, then how do you let them know that you're done? So you get to the point where you're done in this relationship, no hopes, you know, whatever you're feeling. So how do you communicate that with your partner?
I can speak on towards the end of my marriage, I posed the question. I said, hey, my feelings are beginning to change. And I think I'm getting to the point where I'm not going to be able to come back this way. And I said, so if you're willing to work on the marriage, we need to sit down and have a conversation. At that point, he chose that was not something, I didn't force it. And so then my life plan changed at that time. So at that point, I already had my undergraduate degree. So I decided I need to go back to school and get my graduate degree. And like you said, start saving money, having an exit plan, getting everything in place, all while still maintaining my everyday life until the time came. And then I know, and then two, you know, and then I left. Now, I, for one, everybody says ghosting isn't good. You need to give that other person the opportunity or whatever. I don't think so. I think when you're done, you need to be done and just move on, because you give that person another opportunity to convince you that they change. And then I'll throw something else in here. A man will change when you correct him for 2 weeks, and then he reverts back to his old behavior. So don't be the same fool twice.
When you correct him.
Yes, when you correct him, he'll change for 2 weeks, and then he'll go back. Test the theory.
Well, it's not just men, because women do it too.
Well, I've never been with a woman, so I can't speak on that.
Well, I
But
have, and I can.
okay, well there you
So
go.
I'm letting you know it goes both ways. Um, and it sucks, right? Because ultimately, and I think what you said is really important. You said when you correct them, because what I learned after my marriage in that, like you said, that 5 years is the biggest mistake I made was not listening and not acknowledging some of the red flags before we got together, and thinking that those red flags were just things that I could help her evolve into and I could help her change. You can't change somebody. People are going to be
Right.
who they are.
Exactly.
You know, and when you
Exactly.
start thinking you could change them, you already failing. You
And
already
I
failing.
want to add on to this. So this is my own personal experience. When you just do dumb shit, trying to get that person to be in that box, I'm talking about stupid stuff. I got a whole list of them, and I'm not proud of them. The statute of limitations may not have run out, so I won't speak on them. But when you start doing that and you find yourself doing that, I think that's when you really need to go in and check yourself. Because when you get to that point where you have to sit back and you say, I can't believe I did that. Like, Brenda's my friend. I always use her. Hey, I'm going to call Brenda first. But sometimes I wouldn't want her to pick up because, she's that voice of reason for me. And so I would do whatever. And then afterwards, she would laugh and say, that wasn't called for. But I think and that was one of the things, that's self-reflection, right? So now when I get angry or it's not going the way I think it should, I sit and reflect back on me and how I'm going to choose to react to that.
That's right.
And not try to put that box. Because I think when you start chasing, putting that person in that box, that's kind of what Jay just said. You find yourself doing the craziest things and you're making yourself crazy and you're looking crazy. And then they could say you're crazy.
Exactly. Can I just say Brenda tonight just came with fire. Not only is she glowing, not only has she changed the hair, she's on fire. Like compared, I've been on this for 3 weeks, but tonight there's something different. We still got to find out, Renee, what's going on with Brenda. But what she said about those, people, the men, you correct them. That's for me. That's like what Mr. J said. People show you who they are, like Maya Angelou said. When people show you who they are, believe them. So I don't think it's a man-woman thing. When you realize that, okay, this person is not doing what I want, whatever, but they're not fitting into what I want in a relationship, that's your red flag to be like, okay, they're never going to be, because, okay, they can change for a little bit, but that's not their natural state. Things revert back to their natural state, So that's when you got to kind of check yourself and be like, all right, maybe it's time for me to step out, because this person's always going to revert back to that.
Yeah, like I said before, I think women, we create orchestrate events. So in our mind, we're already married. We're already, like, we've planned out our life. Like, we know how this is supposed to go. And so we get in a relationship with a guy, and he just goes along with it. And so you're like, hey, we've been together for 3 years. I'm ready to get married. And he's like, oh, I thought we was just hanging out. I thought we were just having a good time. That's because she told herself that you all were in a relationship. So now she's cooking, she's cleaning, she's doing his laundry, she's doing all of these things. And so she thinks that's getting her brownie points to become a wife when that was never his intention. And so, like you said, we have to listen, we have to pay attention and stop putting words or actions into somebody and kind of leading them by the hand of how we want it to go instead of sitting back watching how things progress.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. So D says, I love this. Brenda's makeup is popping. She are going in the direction of her love life up. So hold on. Erica says the real you will always come out when you are an imposter. So true. I like to do monthly check-ins when I'm in a relationship, like a progress report from D. Good. So D, okay. Speaking of check-ins and monthly progress reports, Brenda,
Yes.
did you meet a zaddy? Is it a zaddy? Because people want to know. I think people have stayed on all this time to hear the update on did you meet
Oh
a
my
zaddy?
God. How funny. No. Um, I think it's hilarious because I just threw on a sweatshirt and put my hair up because it wasn't acting right.
Yo, I was about to ask for your number. That's all I'm gonna tell you.
Right? Right?
But I
I'm about to
appreciate
change
the
the
compliment.
name. Okay, so did you get some?
No.
Oh, okay.
What about the apps?
The only thing that's changed is I'm now here with my parents and my mom is cooking every day. So that's the only thing that I've
Oh,
been having, meals cooked with love. So that's
Oh.
it.
that might be it.
Hey,
But what
so
about
you
the
had a
apps?
question?
Did you sign into any of those apps? Did you try anything different?
No, no, I did not. I did not.
Now, have you had maybe taken a little step further and talking to someone a little bit more on an app?
A guy liked my picture and I reached out and said hello, but I have not gone back to see if he responded.
Okay, so that was recent.
Yeah,
Okay,
that was since
wait, wait,
last
wait.
week.
Okay, so I have a question. So you just said just hello. That's it.
I said hello. I would like to take this opportunity to say hello since you like my picture. Perhaps we can, converse further. If you'd be interested, hit me up. I am not on this site every day, so it may be a while. So don't get offended if I don't respond immediately.
All right,
Okay,
That's more than
guys.
hello.
that is more than hello.
You said that, Brenda Boom. What does that mean? How do you receive that as a guy?
Say
Is
that
that
again. I didn't hear
a
you. Say
further?
that again.
We couldn't hear you.
Oh,
Can't hear you, Cynthia.
rate the answer then. So based on what she sent, if you received that back from a female or someone, what would you say? Yay or nay? Would you reply back?
I mean, yeah, I would, especially if I liked her picture already. Uh, the thing is, if you said last week and today's already Wednesday, I'm like, I'm thinking, even though you have the caveat that you're not on there all the time, I'd be like, okay, she's either really busy or she's really just not that interested. Because in app years, a week is a long time to get back
Yeah.
to someone.
And I noticed, and again, so now I don't know if this is a Brazilian thing. So you guys tell me. But I noticed in Brazil, I'm on these apps, and literally, if I take 10 minutes to not respond, people are like, sumiu, which means you disappeared. What happened? Or they'll say, oh, you're busy. You can't talk. And I'm like, it's only been 10 minutes. I'm like, I have a life. So, like, 10 minutes, at least here in Brazil, is a long time. I think it must feel like a year for them.
I mean,
So,
I think she managed expectations by saying what she said. I'm not on here. It may take me a while. But that said, a week is like last week. That's already
Okay, I just checked
okay.
and he did not respond.
Okay.
in at me, as
I
Shay Cobb say, in at
I
me.
I don't have I have not had good experiences on dating websites. I don't know if I'm intimidating. I don't know if I'm butt ugly. I don't know what it is. Maybe
All I
I
know, you need
Well,
to take a
you're not
picture of
but
yourself
ugly.
I
right
don't know
now.
what it is,
Yes.
but I have
Does,
not he has not found me yet. I don't know where he is.
does
But
your
I'm
picture on
here.
here look like how you look right now? Because
Huh?
Yes, you
you
need
need to have
this look right now.
this
Yes.
look right now.
Take a
The
selfie.
throw together look. Okay.
Take a selfie
No,
right now.
you look
All right.
scrumpy,
So,
girl. I'm telling you. Telling you.
all right. So D has a question, and then Shay added on to the question. So for the ladies, did you guys do wife like things for your husbands before they were married, and then Shay added on? Okay. Then for the men, what are thoughts or expectations that a woman you're dating do wife things? Okay.
So
So ladies first.
I'm not sure what they mean by wife-like duties. So I will say,
Cooking, cleaning.
okay, so I was 19 We got our first apartment together. It was a little rundown thing. I think we had a mattress on the floor and cardboard boxes as nightstands. So if you mean wife-like duties, like we screwed from the time we got home from work all at night because we had no cable, no telephone, no nothing. And then I learned how to cook and everything as the relationship progressed. So when I say instantly, I think we dated maybe 6 or 7 months before we moved in, and then after we moved in, a few months later, married and then pregnant. So.
I did. I emulated what I saw my mother do. She got up every morning. My mother and father used to work together. So my mom would get up an hour or so early. She would make breakfast, full breakfast, eggs, grits, toast, and bacon. This was every single morning. She would get fully dressed, and then she would wake my father up for him to get ready for work. And his clothes and everything would be already laid out. And so this is what I saw. So this is what I did. Um, and so, like I said, as time progressed, and then now you're adding children into the mix, I couldn't maintain that because my first child, he didn't do anything you wanted him to do. He did the exact opposite. So trying to figure out how to get him together, myself together, and still trying to do what I was doing for that father became frustrating. So yeah, I did it. But if I had known better, I would have known don't start anything you don't plan on finishing. So I would not have done it.
Right.
That's interesting.
Yeah. And and that is interesting. And I've seen that like with my mom, like, I come from a Caribbean family, Haiti, and my mom did everything. The cooking, the cleaning, like everything would, bring my dad his food, all of that, then taking care of the kids. And at some point she got to the point where it burnt her out. Like this was too much, like can't do it. And I remember being a kid and I was like, well, why did you start? Like you started it, so you need to continue
Right.
doing it. But yeah, and that was a kid to kid in me, right? And obviously that's wrong, because people change, and it becomes different than when you're married and you're just doing this for your husband. But now you're doing this for your kids and taking on all these different things, all these different responsibilities. It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's hard, and again, we lose ourselves in all of that.
Somebody asked the question back, like, who hurt you? And I don't think so much as there's anybody that I'm hurt. It was just that the experience that I have had, they have not been beneficial to me, or they haven't glorified who I am as a person or made me better. And so now, because of the experiences that I had, even with my ex-husband, he didn't set out to hurt me and I didn't set out to hurt him, but because our paths at some way, they begin to do like this, we no longer served a purpose in each other's life, so it had to end. And so now I'm more careful and I'm more aware of what the things that I need in my life that are going to complement who I am, complement who they are, and then we grow together. And so it's not a hurt place. It's just a place of knowing better. I'm more mature now. So the things that I allowed to happen or the positions that I put myself in before, I definitely won't do that now.
So what you just said is kind of my answer to Shay Cobb's question about, what are the thoughts or expectations that a woman, you're dating to do wife things. When I was 20 and still living at home, if I met a woman, I would allow her to just do all those things, cook, clean, do all of that stuff, right? As I got older and I started to understand why she was doing those things, right? Understanding what those gender roles, and why she was doing those things, and because that's what you do. You take care of your man so that he goes from boyfriend to fiance to husband to father. And I realized, hey, if I'm not on that vibe with someone, I have to be very careful with allowing them to do those things. So the benefit of age is that you have an opportunity to gain some wisdom. So as I got older, I realized, hey, you shouldn't let people do things for you if you understand, especially if you understand what that actually represents,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And so, you know, to answer Shay's, direct question, when I was younger, I was like, hey, yeah, do that. Make me some dinner. Yeah, bring me some food. But as a 40-something-year-old, I was like, whoa, hey, I don't need you doing that for me. Okay.
Uh,
I can do that myself. Thank you.
Jay,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Go.
Good.
You don't know, because I had a similar experience at the beginning of this year, and it's funny you guys brought this up. Two things. One is if somebody tells you what they want and don't want, just believe them. Like I told this person that I wasn't looking for a serious relationship. He did not believe me, and he got really hurt because of that. But I told him this from the day we met. Um, but I noticed that he was doing exactly what Mr. J just said. He was cleaning the house, he was cooking, and I tried to cut it off, and I did cut it off because I realized he's doing this because he wants to be wife. And I'm like, no, like it's not happening. I'm not looking for anything serious. Renee may know who it is because every once in a while, I think we did a live, and there was this butt moving in the background every
I
once in a while.
remember. Yeah, I remember that. It
Beautiful
was a
butt,
beautiful
but
butt.
it wasn't the butt that I was looking for and to like a serious relationship. Um, but yes, so for the men, be careful with that. I mean, it's just something that does happen, and women are conditioned. So I'm not saying they're trying to get over on you or anything. It's just because women, unfortunately, are conditioned to do that, and they'll just won't subconsciously they might do that. But then men have to realize, oh my God, this is happening to me, and be able to have that conversation early on, and be able to tell your partner that, look, this is what I'm after. So men, be honest with your women too, or other men, whatever. Look, this is what I'm after. This is what I'm not after. And then women, listen,
Right, exactly.
listen.
And I
So,
want to add one
so
more
I
part
had,
to
and I
that.
want to add as well, like, in my last relationship, we lived together, and it was Brazil, and by Brazilian standards, we were married, right? Um, and so in that relationship prior to enduring, it was very much everything equal. We both cooked really well. We both cleaned, and so everything just really depended on if he was home earlier than me and wanted to cook dinner, he cooked dinner or lunch, And if I was home earlier that day and I wasn't, and he was working all day, I would cook. And it was just kind of like that. Sometimes he might do the laundry, sometimes I would, and it just flowed. It just naturally flowed. And so for me, that's how I like it. I love to cook, and for me, I don't feel like one thing should be a wife duty, one thing should be a husband's duty, or whatever. You both get into some type of agreement, or and it's good if you can talk about it ahead of time. Like maybe one person cooks, the other one doesn't. Maybe one person doesn't like to cook. But it's important to talk about that and say, okay, how are we going to do this? And that's what we did in that relationship. Like we communicated about this. I knew it beforehand. He knew how to cook and he threw down, and I loved it because he was making these Brazilian meals for me, and other times I was making other meals. So it was just a balance, a good give and take.
So someone earlier said that they were with their high school sweetheart or something, and they had that separation. And Renee, you talked about cycles in your life. So again, I didn't have that dating phase, right? I pretty much met him as soon as I left home, married, and then cycles of life. I'm in my 40s, and it's like, oh my God. So I don't want a relationship. I just want to have some fun. But how do you talk to guys? I think you guys were talking last week about going out and meeting people. Well, when I went out, I wanted to have fun. If I was at a bar or whatever, I really wanted to listen to the music, enjoy. I wasn't trying to have these endless conversations that I knew would go nowhere. So I started Googling all these different things. And, it's amazing what you can Google, how to talk to guys. So this
Right.
guy named Matthew Hussey came up, and Matthew is the business. And so Matthew would teach you how to text, how to talk. And then, Phil, you said something. a second ago, but he said something that really jumped out at me. Matthew did, and he's like, when you're meeting a person and you know they're sending their representative, they want you to see everything good about them. But when they say that one thing that is negative, believe what they're telling you. So, you know, if they tell you in the beginning, I can't commit to relationships, well, that's not something that they're trying to impress you with. So let that resonate and don't make up, like Brenda said, don't create that fantasy or story.
Mhm.
So, you know, but again, this self-help, Google's my friend. Videos like Renee's and other people.
Awesome. So, Ma, this has been really good. I feel like we could like talk for 2 hours. Actually, we could, or 3 hours even. We do that on Tuesday nights. D Love says thanks for answering our questions. Shay Cobbs also said thank you guys. Um, so, does anybody want to close off with like a tip or
I
word
just
of
want to add
wisdom?
one thing that I think is really important, and it's about personal responsibility, right? Um, we've talked a lot about that, but Phil was talking about he met someone and they wanted something that he didn't, and he was clear about what it is he wanted and didn't want. But at some point, I know that I had to learn as a man that if a woman is expressing to me that she wants one thing, but I can tell that she is settling to be with me, that's not a relationship I want to be in. And so it's sometimes you have to save people from themselves, right?
Mhm.
By making a choice, an actual decision to not engage with someone that has made it clear that they're going to want more from you than you're willing to offer, right? For me, I had to accept that as my personal responsibility to say, you know what, this is not going to work. I think you're great, but this is not going to work because you want A, I got Z. It's not, these things are not going to complement each other. And so it, if you know, and you can feel when you have the leverage in a consensual relationship, you got to know that it's your responsibility to walk away from that. And that's hard to do because like we talked about fear earlier, you may not get that thing that you want and you may really want that person, but you may do more damage to them on the long run, and then also to yourself by trying to engage them knowing that that's not, it's, you already know it's not going to work. So that's my
I
tip.
agree. I want to go next because I want to leave the last words for the ladies, especially Brenda, because she's just on somewhere else tonight, and I'm loving it. So I'll be brief here and agree with everything Mr. J said. Um, and I liked something that you said earlier, Jay, about like how you did the business course and everything. In that, we can sometimes get lost in this idea that relationship has to be like that, Disney version of whatever the hell they're selling. And it really isn't. It's hard work, it's tedious, it's rough, it's sometimes it's more downs than ups. And so I like that approach of being very pragmatic with it. Look at it as a business, because even though being in a business, I had a small business here in Brazil for a while, and it's it's tedious, it's pragmatic, it's numbers, but you still love it. So even if you look at something in a pragmatic way like that, it doesn't take away any of the emotional attachment that you have for it. And when you close down your business, it's going to hurt you in the heart and not just in your pocketbook. So don't feel bad about looking at your next steps, getting into a relationship or being in one. Don't look at it as a bad thing if you're looking at it very logically and very pragmatically, because it doesn't mean that you're cutting out the emotional side of it. So that's the last thing I want to say.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful.
Annette,
Ladies?
I just want to go back to the 5 years again. No, I really want you all to understand
I'm
about
up
the
to
five
4.
years. In that 5 years, you're growing into the person you're maturing into that person. You're transforming yourself. You're getting to know yourself so that when you do find that special someone, you're not settling. You're not um you're just not selling for less than. And you have a voice to speak about what it is that you like and you don't like. And you can say, like I said before, I don't like this, but you have to grow into that person to have that voice, to be strong enough to recognize what's best for you. So that's what I want to say about those 5 years. Go ahead and date, have as much sex as you want to in those 5 years, but just know that you are going through a process to get to the mature you. That's all I want to say. And have a good night.
Bill said he's up to 4 years now, Brenda.
Huh?
I know you
He
keep.
says he's up to 4 years.
Yes.
Yes.
He's moving up. He's moving up.
I think my only thing is that, I know I'm not the only person that was in my situation. I know there's many women out there. And, again, you have to put yourself first, especially when you take on roles as mothers and wives. You have to put yourself first because you cannot take care of anyone else, first off, if you can't take care of yourself.
Right.
Great.
And just don't lose yourself. Always keep that part. Every year my birthday is my big hoorah. I go somewhere in the world with my bestie right there. We go somewhere and we tear it up. But just don't lose yourself. And right now with the internet and COVID, it's a great time to reflect. And there's so much online. Like you can find so many self-help things. You can even do your therapy online now. You don't have to go to an office. So, Renee, I think you offer sessions online.
I do.
So, just don't lose yourself. And I think and don't try to conform someone to fit to what you think they should be.
There you go.
You know your hard nose.
All right, very good. Oh, this was awesome. So yeah, these are some great tips. I definitely just want to add on, learning, just basically like you were saying, Cinzia, getting to know yourself, loving yourself, love being with you before you can even try to enter into a relationship. Because so many times we're looking for someone to love us, but we don't even feel worthy of being loved. Or we have this blockage like, will this person really love me? Will they really like who I am? And then you end up not being 100% who you are in that relationship, right? So dating yourself, loving yourself, it's so important to do. And I just want to piggyback what you were saying, Cinzia. I always use that example of the oxygen mask. If you're flying and you lose oxygen, put that mask on you first before putting it on others, right? So taking care of yourself before you try to, get in and do all of these different things in a relationship for everyone else. So love you, date you, work on you, and get rid of that whole thing of this is me being selfish, that guilt around loving yourself and doing for you, because there's nothing wrong with that. So this is good. This was great. So guys who are on here, so we decided last time, right, that for right now, we'll do the first Wednesday of the month. All of us reconvene, have our reunion, because I have to maintain my regularly scheduled program of connecting with different sex therapists, sex educators, tantric therapists, and so, but we'll do the first Wednesday of every month. It's going to be our slot to find out if Brenda got a zaddy and talk about dating tips, relationship tips, um, online dating tips, all of that. So thank you. Bye. Someone said bye. They have a class now. Facebook user. And you're welcome, Bianca. Thank you. So please share this video. If you have not shared this, share this on YouTube or on Facebook. So, because if you enjoyed it, other people enjoy it too. If you have not subscribed and you're on YouTube, subscribe to my YouTube. Give this a thumbs up on Facebook or YouTube. And thank you guys. Thank you, Cinzia, Brenda, Jay, and Phil. This was so much fun. This was like a great month. Well,
Yes.
December was a great month having you on, and beginning the month of January was great. So I'll see you all again in January. And I'll see everybody else next Wednesday. I'm going to have my girl on named Regine, who I met via Facebook because she was interested in doing a retreat here in Brazil. She saw that I did retreats and she wanted to work with me. And this homegirl got me out to Bali, and I led workshops on one of her retreats in Bali. So I'm excited to have her come talk. She works with women of color, empowering women of color, and working with that feminine energy. So that's what we're going to be doing next week. And so I will see you guys. So Universal Faith said this was amazing. Thank you. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for commenting. Love you guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.